Cool. So, today I want to talk a couple different things I just mentioned. I want to start with some inclement weather tips. Obviously, we're hopefully past the brunt force of that kind of ice mageddon or whatever people are calling it these days, and yet they are calling for a chance of some more weather this week. And if you are particularly if you're a girl parent or a girl dad like I am, and your kids are obsessed with Groundhog Day and think it's hilarious, you saw that Phil saw his shadow this morning, which means 6 more weeks of winter. Now, he's only right about 30% of the time, but still, it's been cold lately. It's going to stay cold for the time being. And so let's just talk a few things on what that means for you and your business. Back during COVID, we were ruled essential workers, but it was due to some arguments on our end. Um, when you hear the word essential worker, I don't want you to think that you have to do whatever you can to go out and risk yourselves or your clients. The good news about inclement weather is a lot of realtors aren't going to go out and show those houses. So typically you see a little bit of days on market go up because homes aren't getting the same traffic that they would if it were nice, sunny, and clear roads. So, there's two reasons I bring that up. Number one, or from a buyer standpoint, judge or use reason there. You don't necessarily have to run out the door, even though we're experiencing some of this like early spring market. We talked about that sense of urgency a couple weeks ago. Even though we're in this kind of weird time where things are starting to move quickly again and homes are getting multiple offers, if it's bad weather out there, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen that weekend. So use some caution, use some judgment there. You are a little bit at risk or at liability if you are showing a house and somebody slips and falls, even if you're not the one that's just or cause or responsible for, it still puts you in an awkward situation, especially depending on how bad the fall is. I had a friend of mine over the weekend, last weekend when the weather was bad, not within Keller Williams, but their client slipped and fell down an entire flight of stairs at the front of the house and got pretty badly hurt. And he's a broker with another company, so he posted a long like thing about it, like, "Hey, and so what he did after the fact was then he started bringing like a little pickaxe and some ice melt in his car. So he would get there about 30 minutes early and try to clear a path for his clients to get to the front of the house. Now, you can make the argument the seller should do that already, but if it's a vacant house, nobody's there to do that. So just keep in mind some of these things. It's not a bad idea to keep like an ice pick in your car. Or even just the heavy duty ice scrapers from the front of the car, the brush on the other side of them, and then maybe like a little bag of ice melt. Obviously, keep in mind that ice melt's hard to find right now. But just moving forward, that's not a bad idea to have. As well as if you can get them, like a couple extra sets of the chains that strap on the bottom of shoes or the little spike things. That's good too to help your clients walk to and from the door. And then it's good practice for yourself too, just to be able to get to and from the door. Another friend of mine, not in Richmond, but in an area that got a bunch of snow, pulled up to a listing appointment, and the driveway and entire front yard was all just sheets of ice. And he posted a picture, and it was like, grateful for the listing opportunity, not grateful to walk across this skating rink. And it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's going to be an awkward listing appointment when you're covered in moisture or you're wet from falling. Yeah, go ahead, Katrin.
Question. So, as a listing agent, are you required, because the home inspector appraiser needs to go to the house once you're kind of in pending mode, to have it, cleared up, like that they actually can reach the front door? Are you required?
No, that's not necessarily something that an inspector would um, flag or deem necessary. Now, at the same time, to that kind of point and kind of what we were talking about at the start of the call, um, they do need to be able to access the house. So if you're listing a house and it's on a driveway like this and the driveway is all iced over and they can't pull in or they can't walk up it, it's not that necessarily you're going to be at fault, but what will probably happen more often than not is they're going to ask for an extension on the inspection timeline. And your seller is going to be under a little bit more pressure to accept that. Now, that being said, just as another illustrated point here, because I like to use examples from what I have going on in my business, or like I just gave a few friends. I have a listing that's been under contract for a couple weeks now. They actually asked for a 14-day inspection window, which to me is very long. I usually see 7 to 10 days, and a week in was they did the inspection before the snow. And they did the inspection 7 days after going under contract. And so it was already kind of like later into that window. Well, at about 10, 11 days was when the snow started, the bad weather we've had, the snow and the ice. Part of the inspection noted that they have JES jacks under the property and had some foundation work done, which we knew about. We provided all the documentation. It was done a few years ago. We have all the engineer reports. Everything was given to the buyer. And the buyer was insisting on bringing a foundation expert back of their choosing to verify that the work done was done correctly. And I said, great, you have 3 days to do it. And they're like, well, you're not going to give us an extension because of the snow? And I said, no, because you did the inspection on Tuesday. The snow started on Saturday, Sunday. So you had 4 or 5 days where you could have made this request prior to. They chose to wait. You are not obligated to extend just because they asked for it, or just because of the bad weather. They were trying to use the bad weather as the reason. Now, we've been back and forth with these people on multiple things, and had to point out several different things in the contract, which is a little bit down a rabbit hole here. But one of the things that kept coming up was the roof is original to the house. The house is about 22, 23 years old. They were asking for a new roof. You cannot do that. It says in bold in the contract, you cannot ask for replacement of items that are antiquated or grandfathered in or old. They have to be defective. And even if they're defective, in this case, there is a small roof leak. The seller has the right to repair the roof leak. The buyer cannot ask for a new roof unless we call a roofer and the roofer comes back and says, we can't fix a leak. It has to be replaced. Then the seller would have to have a conversation with me as their agent to determine if they want to fix the roof or not. But the buyer cannot ask for a new roof in lieu of repairs. The other thing that came up on this is the buyer was asking for a credit that was greater than every single repair added up on the inspection window. The reason why is because they were trying to get a new roof, and they can't do that. And so we've been going back and forth for several days now trying to get something in agreement, and the buyer keeps changing their script. And in large part, it's because the buyer says that they're used to new construction. Well, the thing with new construction is you're getting a new roof because it's new construction. So her argument didn't hold water or hold weight because you can't ask for an old roof to be replaced on new construction because that's not going to exist. Not to mention, just because it's new construction doesn't mean the seller is going to fix everything that's wrong, although there are different rules and regs with it being new construction that the builder is required to follow. So just keep that in mind. Now, one of my jobs as a coach is to help you guys through these type of things. So when you get your first deal under contract and your second and your third and your fourth, we walk through these together. There's several people both on and off the call that we've dealt with some inspection stuff when they've had it going on, even experienced agent. Like Katherine's done several deals, and we still were talking the last deal she had about just little nuances that come up. Coaching is designed with a model so that we can reach the masses. However, there are new things that come up every single time. So like I can't individually meet with you one-on-one for every little thing of your business. However, there are certain times where one-on-ones are appropriate, like figuring out a certain contract addendum or walking through a contract together for the first time. Once you've done a couple, you get used to it. However, that doesn't mean something new isn't going to come up. The other thing with anything contract or form related, Catherine Curran, our broker, should be your first line of defense. Now, that doesn't mean start with me. It just means that I'm probably going to refer it to her as well, because that's her role. She's in the broker seat. Now, I am a licensed broker. I used to be a broker of an office, two different offices, actually. So I'm pretty familiar with it. And yet it's a requirement of hers to be involved with RAR and all the rules and changes. It's not a requirement of mine, part of why I stepped out of the role. And so I always run it back by her, whether I do it or you do it. It's also good for you to foster that relationship. So just keep that in mind. If I say like, hey, check with Catherine, it's not me saying I don't have time for you or brushing you off. It's just let's CYA all of ourselves and make sure that we're getting the same information across from the broker's perspective when it's like a form or contract related issue. My job as a coach is more of like best practices and how to grow your business and go take you from, okay, I want to be a licensed real estate agent to I want to grow a business or I want to own a business, because that's really why we're all here. And personally, that's what I think Keller Williams does better than any other office is they teach you how to run a business, not just sell houses. All right. Now, with that segue being said, even if you haven't watched it yet, it's okay. Go back and watch it. The video from last week is all about accountability. That is one of the strongest assets that a coach can provide you, regardless of industry you're in, It could be real estate. It could be medical sales. It could be door to door sales. It could be something not sales related. Having a coach, one of the best tools that they can provide you is accountability. Now, that does not mean I'm on over your shoulder or in the background saying, did you do your homework or did you make the calls you were supposed to make this week? What it means is I want to know what your goals are, and I'm going to best help facilitate you towards those goals. I'm going to pick on Jabri for a second just because he and I were emailing back and forth last week about this. He shared with me his goal. He was talking with me via email about how to create a GPS around that goal. And he was asking pretty good questions. Do you think this conversation goal is enough to reach the units I want to make? In short, there's no perfect number there because as you get more experienced in real estate, the conversations you're going to have number wise or quantity wise are actually going to go down to convert the same amount of business because you're going to get better equipped with having real conversations that get you closer to the finish line. I am better at figuring out a buyer's sense of urgency now than I was 5 years ago, and definitely than I was 10 years ago, and 11 years ago, and 12 years ago when I started in the business. I was actually laughing to myself about that the other day because I was driving down the road and I passed one of the first houses I ever sold back in 2014. And they're still living in that house to this day. And I laughed to myself because I was like, I don't even remember showing them houses. Like it was that long ago. I remember them buying it and I remember the kind of like under contract phase, but I don't remember showing them houses. I don't remember what questions I asked. I don't remember how it went. It was a totally different market then. And yet now, and I'll even give a more immediate example, I can do less conversations per week now than I could a year ago because I have a coach and he's helped me improve on those things. So it's okay that your GPS starts out one way now and it changes over time. It doesn't mean your goal has to change. The other piece of that is Jabri was asking, do you think that's realistic? And I'm not going to share his unit goal because that's between me and Jabri. And if he wants to share that with you, he can. But he was saying, do we think that's realistic for somebody that's dual career? And I said, anything is realistic. You just have to base your activities around that. And that's the conversation we need to have. So let me illustrate that. If I said I want to sell 50 houses in 2026 and I have another job, well, that means I have to get the business that it requires to sell 50 houses either within my other job, meaning it's providing opportunities for me, or outside the time frame that I'm working in the other job. Most of the time, it's that option. Most of the time, our dual career does not allow us to lead generate within that other job. There are a few exceptions, but most of the time, that's the case. Katrin's not walking around H&R Block asking people if they want to buy or sell a real estate. Conversations may come up when they're out of the office. That's different. She's not using that as a lead funnel source. Matter of fact, there are some companies that strictly forbid it. If you work at Capital One, they will not let you tell people that you're in real estate. I've had past people that I coached at another company that were fired because of that. And all he was doing was he had, I'm in real estate, ask me about it on his laptop. And so when he would sit in meetings, he'd open that up. And the HR pulled him in the office and fired him on the spot because it's in his contract not to do that. So be aware of that, for one, if you are dual career. Number two is because that's common that you cannot get business from your other job or actively recruit it, we have to work with the hours that we're given outside of that. So that's when the realistic conversation comes up. If I want to sell 50 houses, well, that's probably going to require a high level of activity. Do I have the time allotted to do that high level of activity? Am I willing to do open houses every single weekend and both days? Am I willing to commit to making this many conversations when I get off of work? You see where I'm going with this? If those things are possible within the realms of your time constraints, and this is not to mention if you have a family, if you have other interests, if you have kids, if you have other things outside of work. I'm not saying abandon those because we can't just work, 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 work. There's no happiness in that. That's where we start having this realistic conversation. So what I did with Jabri was I said, okay, let's take a step back. Why do you have the unit goal that you have? What would that do for you and your family? This is something I mentioned on the call last week. If I want to sell 50 houses in a year, am I picking 50 because that is related to the income goal I have and the needs that I want to meet for me and my family and including some wants there too? Or am I picking 50 because it sounds good? Or better yet, what I see a lot of, and I have a problem with this myself in my business, am I picking 50 because that gets me into the next award category, which is our ego speaking. Am I saying I want to sell 20 million in real estate because I know that gets me in the top 100, and top 100 gets me a different badge with real producers, or gets me a higher level of award with Keller Williams, or gets me into the next mastermind group? Some of those things may be relevant. Being a higher ranked agent with real producers opens up some opportunities. And yet, is that really what's most important to me? Well, no. And the way you can figure this out with yourself is you can say, okay, I like to play a game. And I go, would I rather, and I did this with myself and my coach last week, would I rather be top 100 with real producers, or would I rather hit my income goal and buy the new truck I want? And if I can't have both, I'm picking the truck 10 out of 10 times / family goal. Especially because if you were on the call right when I started, I went slippy slidey this morning in my vehicle. So now I really want the truck. It just keeps every bad weather day, it just goes up and up and up. Or the next time I have to put 16 bags of mulch in the back of my Volvo, I'm going to scream. And that happens every spring. So you see where I'm going with this. Like, there are things that can move the needle forward or make it more important to us that aren't external. Well, then you build your activities off of that. Now, the whole point of the accountability last week is for you to get familiar with what you want to achieve. And then we're putting up guardrails, or we're putting up metrics that can keep us on track towards our goal. The challenge with real estate is it's not an immediate gratification business. And most humans are wired for immediate gratification. You score more points than the other team, you get a win. The timeline is the game. If you work in retail and you make a sale, the money's paid right there. If you're in the restaurant industry, you get tips. You get paid hourly. You show up to work, you get paid. For most jobs, you show up for work, you get paid, whether it's salary or hourly. Real estate is not like that. Not to mention, when you make the sale, you don't get paid right away. You have to go through the process of getting the property closed. And then even then, once it closes, you still don't get paid right away. There's still a little bit of a timeline there based on the processing and who did the closing and some of those things. So we have to build a strategy around what are the things I can control, which are those activities, and how do I know I'm on track, since I'm not getting immediately notified that, like, you made this much money, or you made these sales happen. Not to mention, which hasn't been as much of a problem in the past, but it's growing, not everything we put under contract will close. There's what's called a fallout rate in real estate. And historically, it's about 25% of what goes, maybe 20% of what goes under contract will not close. Inspection issues, financing issues, job relocation doesn't go through, loss of job. I mean, you can go on and on and on. There's a lot of reasons why something might go under contract and then not close. Buyer gets cold feet. We see that one a lot. Buyer wants a new roof when they're not allowed to ask for a new roof. We're seeing that one currently. So there's reasons why the deal falls apart. Now, fortunately for us, usually we can find them something else, so you don't lose the client altogether. However, if you're on the listing side and the deal falls apart, you do run a little bit of the risk of it's more difficult to sell it once it goes back on market. And it's even more difficult to sell it for the same price. So some of these factors come into play and they're out of our control. So we factor all of that in. If you remember back to the economic model, and I'm going to share my screen here. We use some percentages here. So this 75% sold conversion rate is the percentage of what did we get under agreement that actually goes to closing. What are the listing agreements that I get signed that actually go to closing? Well, it's about 75% of those. We just mentioned 20 to 25% fallout rate. Buyers, same thing. So we're already factoring that into our economic model. Now, these numbers aren't right because I changed this from 24 to 12 and I didn't change these bottom ones yet. So we can do that in real time. There you go. And now this is just an example. If you have not done your economic model already, please do it. There's a video on the YouTube channel where you can go back and watch it, and I'm happy to help you with that. The 4 models of a business from the MREA are my sweet spot. That's why I'm sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in coaching you guys, is because I know that better than most in our office. I teach the business planning clinic. I travel to teach the business planning clinic. It single-handedly transformed my business more than anything else, which is why I'm in the MREA world and why I'm with Keller Williams and why I'm becoming a math coach, because I know the power of these models and I know they work. It also takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. The point of this and the way the business plan is taught, you build model one, which is the economic model. That's where we figure out how much money do I want to make? How many houses do I got to sell to make that money? Your net income is here. If I want to make $100,000, this is basically what it looks like. Now, your operating expenses may be different than 15K. We'll talk about that here in a second. If that goes up, this goes down, which means I got to sell more houses, period. The good news is at KW, in our office, that's your cost of sale. That quick reminder, cost of sale, you only pay it if you have a sale. That's a split, a commission split. It locks or it caps with Keller Williams. You pay $3,000 to KWI, you pay $20K to KW Metro Center, you're done. It's $23,000 a year. That's called being a cap. If you had referral fees or if you had a transaction coordinator, that would also go in here. And then operating expenses is everything else. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there's a full training on it. I just want to illustrate a few things here. You get to decide what this number is. Then we base our activities off of that. We have to build a lead gen model out, which is going to tell us where does that business come from. We know how many appointments we need. To sell 12 houses, we need 22 appointments a year. If you really want to make this easy, round that up to 24 and say I got to go on one buyer appointment and one seller appointment every single month. That's 2 appointments a month. That's 24 for the year. You will hit your goal. So what do I got to do to get 24 appointments or 2 appointments a month? Now, as your coach, I will tell you, if you go on 2 buyer appointments in February or 2 seller appointments in February, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a perfect 50-50 split. Matter of fact, if I were really coaching you one-on-one in a MAPS coaching capacity, I would be saying, what would it look like if you did 75% seller side? Number one, you're going to have a lot more time. And number two, you're going to have a lot more leverage because listings provide other opportunities. People call on the sign that want to see it. You do open houses, you get buyer leads that way. You have marketing collateral or opportunities with that listing, your photos, your media that you create, social media that you create, your signs in the yard. You can do just sold mailers or knock on doors. You have a lot you can do with a listing that you can't necessarily do with a buyer. Also, we talked about this in previous trainings too. You don't have to drive the listings around to show them houses. So Linan said in the chat, how do you increase your conversion rate? It's great to have appointments. However, to have those, you have to convert those appointments. Correct. And that's something we talked about right at the beginning of the call. As you get more experience and as you are coached and as you are trained and as you go to role play on Fridays and you practice with accountability partners, and quite honestly, as you go on appointments, your conversion rate should go up. Here's a couple things I want to talk about with that too. Number one, you should never, ever, never see 100% conversion rate. Here's why. If you're seeing 100% conversion rate, you're not going on enough appointments. You should not get every appointment you go on. I don't get every appointment I go on, and I've been doing this for 13 years, and I'm a coach. I'd like to think I'm pretty good at conversing about real estate. I don't get all the appointments I go on. Some of them choose another agent. Some of them decide not to sell. Some of them decide not to buy. It's not to say that they're not going to convert at a later date, but I didn't get it at that appointment. I had one recently. I went on a listing appointment. I knew they were interviewing 3 agents. I thought I knocked it out of the park. One of his nieces is a referral partner of mine that would literally get paid if he sold with me. His other niece just bought a house with me. His son swam with me growing up. His other niece went to high school with me. And the house that they're building, my cousin is his design coordinator. We got a lot of overlapping relationship there. 2 weeks after the listing appointment, he emailed me and said, thanks for your time. You did great. We're going in another direction. That's all I got. So you don't get all the appointments you go on, even the ones you think you're going to get, and that's okay. The coaching piece of that is you look back on the appointment, and it's also good to do this like right when you find out that you didn't get it. Sometimes it's good to do it where you let some time go by. But we look back at the appointment, we say, what are the areas I could improve? Sometimes there's not an area you can improve. Sometimes it's like, I did what I did. They just decided to go in another direction, like the example I just gave. There's probably not anything else I could have done differently. They got a pre-listing packet. They got an email ahead of time. I confirmed the appointment. I was on time. We walked through the house. We had good rapport. It was a good quality lead. Like I think they just went in another direction. Sometimes other agents tell them a price that they would rather sell at. That doesn't mean that other agent's right, but that's something outside of your control. Or to kind of Lynn Ann's question, sometimes you get questions on an appointment that you might not know the answer to, or you might not answer as clearly as you thought you could. And that's your area of growth or your area of opportunity. It's okay to not get every appointment you go on. We want to start noticing, why are we not getting those appointments? The other piece of this puzzle as well, sometimes the appointment's not converting because you're going on the wrong type of appointments, which is something you can or can't control. For example, you go meet with a potential buyer, then you find out the buyer's not pre-approved or can't get financing. That's out of your control. However, if you have a strong lender partner, they're going to work with them to build a plan out to get them approved. And then when they are approved, they're going to come back to you anyways. It just might not be a now thing. So sometimes appointments don't convert because of timeline. Sometimes you're going on an appointment that you think is a good lead, and then they ghost you and they never answer you again. Maybe you can control that. Maybe you can't. One of the easiest ways you can control that is, where is that appointment coming from? What's the source of that lead? That's the challenge that I have with internet leads. Internet leads are looking for door openers. They want you to open the door to see if they like that house. If they don't like that house, you may never hear from them again. Now, if they do like that house, maybe they convert. Or if you're a really strong agent, maybe you can convert them to being your client. But the conversion rate on internet leads is about 4% to going under contract. For every 100 people you talk to from an internet lead, you convert 4 of them to going under contract. Versus a database is closer to 75 to 80%, which is why it's on the economic model. I don't know about you. I'd rather convert at 75 to 80% than 4%. Now, once you have this general idea of how many appointments you need to go on, we just talked about it. We have a lead generation model on where do those leads come from. That is where your GPS comes into play. Once you've decided on 2, maybe 3 funnels to get leads, you're going to put them into the GPS. This is straight off of the call last week. Now, I'll share this with you guys if I haven't already. This is just a sample agent business plan. Some of you may have it because it's a little bit old. Some of you might not. So I'll share it with everybody when we're done today. This is a sample GPS. So that unit goal that we just had on the economic model, that 12 would go right here. If you remember, our GPS stands for 1, 3, and 5. And I'll talk about why in a second. It's one goal, 3 priorities, or 3 overarching themes that are going to help us get that goal. For most of you, you're going to have 2 lead funnels and then a way to grow your database. Now, your second lead funnel, open houses, will also grow your database. The beauty of this is, if we're funneling everything into our database, our activities are focused around communicating with our database, which makes it really systematic and easy to do business. Now, go back and watch the database trainings that we've talked about before to hear the importance of database. Number 1 is going to be 5 strategies or actionable items that we stay in touch with our database. Now, already I would change some of this to make it more specific. If you've heard the acronym SMART when you're setting goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, use that acronym for your strategies. So I would change this. For number 1, I would say 12 monthly newsletters, and I would say sent via email. because that's what it's done. So once a month, I'm sending an email. 4 care calls. That's pretty easy. It's calling your database 4 times. You may add in there using DTD2, which we'll talk about in a second. Handwritten note cards. Well, how many? How many handwritten note cards am I committing to writing? Not daily, not weekly, not monthly, to my database. So, for example, if I want to send them a note card 4 times a year, that's when I'm going to write 4 handwritten note cards or quarterly handwritten note cards. If I want to write 6 a year, I'm going to write 6. If I want to write 1 a year, I'll write 1. Make it specific to where you can measure it to see if it gets done. Same thing with pop-by gifts, same thing with events. Those are just examples. There are other things in here you can do too. Like if you go back to mine, it's more specific. It should say sent via email on this one, but it's the same thing. Email, call, life event, handwritten note. Life events are sent via video or a gift. Then it's the pop-by gifts, events, that kind of thing. And then it's a database growth plan. This is what needs to be changed. And see, mine's not even perfect. How am I going to grow the database? Now, this is actually on another item, another tab. So it's really just a placeholder for me. But this should be specific and measurable. If I'm not adding 20 people to the database every single month, I'm not hitting that strategy. Or whatever your number may be, which is on the database training. Then you would go down to priority 2, which is going to be open houses for every single one of you in coaching, because open houses are the strongest way to get now business, especially if you don't have it. Now, open houses, how many are you going to do a month? How many signs are you going to put out per open house? How many doors are you going to knock out per open house? What's your follow-up plan? Are you doing a neighbor exclusive? And if you are, how many of them are you doing and on how many open houses? Again, watch the open house training to see those details. This is a sample GPS. Then you'll do a database growth plan, or a personal growth plan can also fall into here. Because if your database is pretty large now, like if you've been in Richmond for a while and you have enough people in there and you're doing open houses, this can be a personal growth plan. Now, personal growth plan can be as an agent. It can be as a person outside of an agent. It can be a combination of both. So kind of to Lynn Ann's original question, if I'm not converting enough appointments, well, I would challenge you to have a growth plan as your priority 3. And one of the strategies would be attend role play and you can do or partner with an accountability partner where you can role play with them. So if you can't make a Friday, maybe you find somebody that you can call once a week. It could be attend X amount of trainings with KW or without KW. It could be go to family reunion. It could be go to mega camp. It could be hire a coach. It could be graduate track 1 and opt into track 2. It could be graduate track 2 and opt into track 3. Those type of things could go on your personal growth plan. It could be read X amount of books. On mine, because I have a personal GPS as well, because my coach loves GPSs. And so I have 4 of them. Yay. But it becomes a tracking tool. The reason why I have 4 of them is because I have 1 for my production business. I have 1 for PC program or Six Figures by Design. I have 1 for my MAPS coaching business, and I have 1 for my personal growth. Now, my personal growth GPS is family, health, and growth. So I have 5 strategies that I do with family. I'm home for 6 out of 7 dinners every single night, every single week with my kids. That's one of the things on family. On health, no fast food. Or fast food once a month, I think is actually what it says. On growth, read 24 books in 2026. Do a month. So there's certain, you can apply this to any area of your life. The reason why we make it specific is because then we can do what we talked about last week on the call, and you can move it over to our 411. Now I'm going to talk briefly about the 411 once I find where I sent it. Am I in the wrong email? Yes. Hold on. Bear with me. So you all got this email last week of a sample for one. Remember, if you watched the training last week, or if you haven't yet, you'll hear me say this. I recommend printing it and writing these out because everything goes into your brain and is retained better when you handwrite versus if you type. And this was something I was taught by my first MAPS coach back in 2022. Here's how this looks. You print out 4 for the month of February. And at the start of every week, you take a new one out. And so this is the first week in February. So I'm going to write my annual goals. I handwrite it out. I will sell 40 houses in 2026. I will add 240 people to my database. I will coach 40 agents. Whatever my annual goals may be, write those out. I like using affirmative statements. I will do this. I will do this. I will do this. Or if you want, you can also do, I've heard this coach strategy too. You can do, I sold 40 houses in 2026. Make it affirmative and past tense. That's another way of kind of believing it. Then monthly goals, take those annual goals divided by 12, do the exact same thing. I sold 4 houses, or I will sell 4 houses. I added 20 people to the database. Then you're going to do your weekly goals. Now, your weekly goals should mirror your GPS. So if I go back over here and I'm going to send out a monthly newsletter, just between me and you, I send out my monthly newsletter the first Tuesday of every month. So on a weekly goal, it's going to say send out monthly newsletter to database. It's also going to say send out agent newsletter to agents in database because I do both. And then it will say have 75 conversations or whatever your conversation goal is. It might say add 5 people to the database. It might say write 10 handwritten notes. I'm getting these activities from my GPS and I'm moving them onto the weekly goals. And I do that the start of the week. Where to go? Then, as I do an activity, I physically cross it off on the weekly goal sheet, which is a little bit of a celebratory win for yourself. I sent my newsletter, sweet, cross. I sent my other newsletter, sweet, cross. I wrote 10 handwritten note cards, cross. I had 50, not 75 conversations, circle, make a star. Maybe write in the margin 25 short. If you're like me, last week you didn't hit your conversation goals. We had a couple snow days last week. So when my coach says, how'd your goals go last week? I go, I fell short of my conversation goals. Well, tell me about that. Well, we had 3 days of snow days. Could you have made those calls when you had snow days? Probably. Like I definitely could have. Kind of going back to the very beginning of our call, when I said don't put yourselves at risk by going out in inclement weather if you don't have to, use that as an opportunity to lead gen. What I did do last week is I did 30 handwritten note cards when my goal is 10 because I was spending time with my kids during the day because they were home and I was home and I don't usually get that luxury. And then at night, I was crunching out more note cards. Now, the irony of it is we were joking at the beginning of the call. Some mailman didn't come to the mailbox. So it's like, yeah, I got all these notes to mail and the mailman can't get them. Fortunately for me, my mailman can get to my mailbox. So we were good there. Then you would move on to week 2. Now, some of your weekly goals may carry over. So what I mean by that is if I don't send my newsletter this month or this week, I got to move it over because it's got to get done once a month. Some don't roll over. 75 conversations. If I'm 25 short, that doesn't mean I do 100 next week. I still go for 75 next week. My weekly goals there stays the same. You don't punish yourself for missing part of your goals. Same thing with adding to the database. If my goal is to add 20 a month, which is 5 a week, and I don't add any in week 1, I got to find a place to put those additional 5 or I'm not hitting my 20. Let's use the appointments though. If I have a goal of 2 appointments a month, and let's say week 1, I go on 1 appointment. If I don't go on 1 appointment, that's okay. Next week I can go on one appointment. I got 2 buffer weeks because I only got to do 2 a month. Or if I got to do 3 a month, I got 1 buffer week. Now, if I got to do 4 a month, I got to move it over. This is meant to make it systematic and easy for you to follow. And you would just go down the list. Now, on that PC tracker that gets sent to you via Smart Plan, this is where you can report some of these activities. And one of the things you should put on there is sent 411 to coach if you send it to me. If you don't send it to me, but you do it, put it on there, completed my 411. That should be an activity that you should practice. When I first took over the PC role in October of 2024, I had a game I played, which I'll do with you guys because it helps hold me accountable. If you send me your 411, I send you mine. So you send me your 411, I see it, I review it, I give you feedback, and I reply back with a picture of mine. And then if I don't do it, I have to tell you why. Sometimes when I was doing this with a few agents before, sometimes I would say, hey, haven't done mine yet, doing it later today. We'll send it to you when I have it. Or I'm out of the office, it's sitting on my desk. I'll send it when I get back in my office. You don't have to carry it around with you. But that's building in an automatic accountability partner. Maybe you don't want to send it to me at first. That's fine. Pick somebody on the call that you can send it to. And you two send it to each other. Do the same game. I'll send you mine if you send me yours. Or maybe you send it to me to make sure you're doing it right for the first couple. And then you're like, cool, I got it. I got it down. Now I'm going to put an accountability partner and send it with them. That's fine. I also don't really want to get 40 411s. So find people to share it with. Just kidding. I'd love to get 40 411s because that means everybody's playing on board. All right. Any questions on that stuff? I hope that was helpful. I don't want to go too in detail of like the agent business plan because we've done that in the past. But I wanted you to walk away with 2 tools that you can immediately work with. And by the way, if you get into MAPS coaching, when you get into MAPS coaching, hopefully down the road, this is a requirement for everybody in MAPS coaching, both from the coach perspective and the agent, is a GPS and 401. The third tool is a P&L, profit and loss statement. Those 3 tools will help you run a business and will help you reach your goals more than anything else. Because they're simple, they're direct, and they're purposeful. That's going from, I have all these ideas, entrepreneurial, to purposeful, which is one of our 6 personal perspectives, which is also a piece of Keller Williams. That's how we go from I have these ideas to I'm going to make it happen. That's the difference between being a good agent and a great agent, or a good agent and a business owner. All right, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? Joel is looking for accountability partners.
I meant to say that he put it in the chat if anybody is ready. Nicole had to jump off Austin. She has a meeting.
Okay, that's fine. I'm taking a picture of the attendance so I don't forget.
I'm texting you right now. The attendance photo.
Thank you.
I just gonna say as dual career agent, because my time is also limited. I do put a lot of morning emphasis, evening emphasis, and a lot on the weekends. I'm looking forward to jump back into open houses, and I'm already emailing with agents that have open houses coming up later in the month. Let them know I'm available. So I'm trying to be proactive about it. And then again, if anybody wants to jump on and shadow or role play, let us know, because the open houses is a good tool for you to gain your pipeline, your leads, and all that. Okay.
Yes, great point. And with that being said, we talk about this a little bit on the open house training. Nowhere is it a rule that open houses have to be on Saturdays and Sundays. You can do weekday open houses. So if you're dual career and evenings are a prime time for you to work, do an evening open house. Now, the one rule that does caveat or overlap is you want to give yourself 2 to 3 days minimum to plan it, preferably more. You put it in the MLS, you get the signs out, you get that stuff going. So give yourself time. Don't just be like, hey, I'm doing one on Tuesday tomorrow evening, and just do it, because you're not going to be happy with the results. We talked about it before. Sometimes you do open houses and nobody shows up. Well, was that a response to the house, Or was it a response to my activities that I did or didn't do? Or was it a freak accident? Like sometimes you just get a dull open house. Maybe weather was bad, it poured rain, nothing you can do about it. Uh, or is there something you can change to make it better in the future? That's right, kind of back to the activities thing. Could I put out more signs? Could I door knock? Could I market it more? Um, be careful with social media, by the way. I'm seeing a trend or a pattern, not with this group necessarily, but with just with agents in general and the agents that I work with outside of here. Um, there seems to be a misunderstanding that we can post stuff on social media and that gets us business. You don't get business from social media from posts. You get business from social media from engagement and conversations that happen, whether it's via DM or starts on social media and moves to offline. So if you're posting on social media and considering that an activity, just use caution there. I do it myself too. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just in general, and that especially shows up as open houses. There's another team in our office that they were actually communicating with me about how they could increase their open house traffic. And I said, well, what are you doing? They're like, well, we're posting on social media every single day. And I'm like, okay, you know how many open house posts I see on social media that I just scroll right by? Like, I don't care. Now, if I'm in the market to buy a house, maybe I see it. But even then, like, I've probably seen it somewhere else. So just keep that in mind. You're remember from the MREA, we're prospecting based, marketing enhanced. Marketing is posting on social media. Prospecting is actively creating conversations. That can be text, that can be call, that can be video message, that can be face to face, that can be DMs on social media, but create the conversation. Now, I'm not telling you to go log into Facebook and just randomly message a bunch of people. That won't work either. Create engagement first, get them to comment on your stuff, you comment on their stuff, make it eventually get to the DMs. Cool. All right. If there's nothing else, then we're done.
I think Latoya and Joel have to connect. You're both looking for accountability partners. Connect and you guys can hold each other accountable.
Yes,
Sounds good?
that sounds good.
Just gonna put you on the spot. I'm sorry. We're not gonna circle around here. We're just gonna make it happen
Sounds
today,
good.
right now. It's Monday. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. Well, then you guys can be the example too of what comes of it, because I'm confident you guys will make something happen, which will be cool. So then we can show to everybody else. See, Joel and Latoya did it, and then we can all pair up. Now you can also have a group of 3 or 4 too. It doesn't have to be pairs. I think pairs is easiest because less bodies to worry about coordinating schedules and that sort of thing. However, if like 3 or 4 of you want to get together and role play together, that's fine. Especially those of you that are dual career, you may partner with other people that are dual career that are facing the same challenges. Cool. All right. Thank you all for being here today. I will hopefully see you at some point this week. And as always, reach out if you need anything, and good luck out there. Go sell some houses.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.